destroy effectively anything that they touch. It can move at up to 17,000 miles per hour in orbit, can destroy spacecraft, can destroy other satellites. And the issue is that those sorts of clouds of debris don't quickly go away. They don't just fall. I mean, they're in orbit. They can stay up there for years or even decades. And this is not the first time that this has happened. Destruction of satellites can cause this, and there have been other tests of anti-satellite missiles. Russia itself did one last year. The US has successfully used similar weapons in destructive tests, and you'll probably note that that is not a big part of the coverage of what Russia has done, that we too have done that, but it's really bad. And here's the issue. It's not just in the next couple of years, the ISS needs to watch out. There's this concept of what's called, and it's probably being talked about in the chat right now, the Kessler syndrome. And what is the Kessler syndrome? Well, when fragments of something that's destroyed start spreading, they can hit each other, creating more fragments, which can then hit each other, which can create a cascade of more and more debris that can cover more and more territory. And because the threat level of even the smallest bits of debris are so deadly, this can be a massive problem for our entire planet. And it raises the possibility that whole fleets of satellites in orbit right now could be destroyed. If it was bad enough and those destroyed other satellites, which then contributed to the Kessler syndrome, which destroyed more satellites, you could reach the point where it effectively becomes impossible for us to launch new satellites, let alone to leave Earth orbit. At that point, you can kiss goodbye missions to the moon or to Mars or whatever, which doesn't seem to necessarily affect our lives immediately, but think about the inconvenience for Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. So anyway, this is theoretical at this point, but it is highly scary, and that is why we need diplomacy that harshly limits this sort of testing, that we do not weaponize space, we do not test these sorts of anti-satellite missiles, and that we develop the technology that we don't have right now to get rid of the debris that's already there. And meanwhile, well, actually, we're still in space for now. But it is around the world. Why not? We have satellites around the world, at least for now. Maybe they'll be destroyed by the Kessler syndrome eventually. But right now, the satellites are doing something relatively new, and that is that scientists have worked out how to track methane emissions from space. They've only been doing this for a little bit, but satellites are not capable of doing it. And the greenhouse gas of methane, which is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide, has been shown to be leaking from gas pipelines, oil wells, fossil fuel processing plants, and landfills all over the world. Scientists have already used satellites to discover major leaks of methane in the oil and gas fields of Turkmenistan, most of which can be prevented, but to be prevented, they do need to be discovered and mapped. They found measurements revealing thousands of kilograms, in some cases tens of thousands of kilograms of methane leaking from 29 plants every single hour. So thank God they discovered it, so this sort of thing can be fixed. A separate analysis this year found frequent methane leaks on 3 major pipelines supplying natural gas from Russia to Europe. American scientists discovered huge amounts of methane leaking from abandoned uncapped gas wells in Pennsylvania. And so this can be used all over the world. And the issue isn't just the methane. It's for us to stop catastrophic climate change from happening, we need to limit heating to a certain step. And there's been a little bit of progress on that. We have COP26, the countries are saying they're gonna do more, but that's all for detectable emissions. If the emissions are in fact far higher than we think, then even if we miraculously keep to those promises, it might not be enough. So we need to make sure that the data we have is being based on the most accurate understanding of our actual emissions. And it can have important policy implications too, because when you're comparing, for instance, whether it makes sense to generate electricity in the United States between coal and natural gas, there are what are considered to be break-even points where a certain amount of leaked gas, leaked methane means that if you keep it below a certain point, then natural gas might be less emissions than coal. But from what we're seeing now from the satellites, that is not actually the level of leakage that's happening. And in some places, coal in the immediate short term might in fact be cleaner than natural gas. That is what these satellites are giving to us. And the reason I wanted to focus on the satellites today is we have this new threat to satellites. We kind of need them for things like communications, GPS, but also being able to ward off the worst effects of climate change. Okay, with that, we somehow got through this time much faster than I expected. So we do have a little bit more meanwhile in that we'll probably get to tomorrow. But for now, I want to read just one quick comment because I saw Umberto sent in another very generous super chat. Says, anything Brett can do is better than Alex Jones. Arguably. I don't know, Alex Jones gets to be fired up. Anyway, thank you for the super chat. And for all of you watching, I understand the show was different than usual, but thank you for bearing with us. Tomorrow, we do have Big News Wednesday with Jared Jackson. You're not gonna wanna miss that. Coming up right after this show is Indisputable, so don't go anywhere. But for now, until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
Welcome, it's Indisputable, good to be with you. We have a lot of show today, breaking down news of the day. We got Adrienne Lawrence, attorney at law, author and TYT contributor. Also in the bullpen, I got Pedro Gonzalez, associate editor at Chronicles, a magazine of American culture. We're gonna talk about the Rittenhouse trial and criminal justice overall. Top story for today. Once again, the defense attorney for one of the killers who killed Ahmaud Arbery has said something else quite racist. Now, I want you to hear my conclusion at the end of this story because it may be different than what you have been thinking. As you recall, this defense attorney, Kevin Goff, he stood up and said he did not want black preachers to come inside of that courtroom anymore. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. And then he mentioned the name of Reverend Jesse Jackson. Well, Reverend Jesse Jackson had never been in the courtroom. He was not there. And according to my sources, did not plan to come. But after this happened, he did. He showed up. And here's what the defense attorney said. He said, I object. How dare they bring Reverend Jesse Jackson in here? Here's what the judge said.
What you're doing, I have already ruled on this court's position with regard to the gallery. And with all candor, I was not even aware that Reverend Jackson was in the courtroom until you started your motion. I have indicated the court's position. The court's position hasn't changed. At this point, it's almost as if you're just trying to continue this for purposes other than just bringing it to the court's attention. And I find that objectionable from the court standpoint.
Let me be the interpreter for Judge Timothy Walmsley here. Judge is saying, you see, I peep game. Why you keep bringing this up in my courtroom? I think you're trying to do something other than what you're objecting to. You see, I actually believe the judge is onto something when he said, this seems like something other than the objection. Now, I want you to follow the timeline here. This defense attorney says black pastors should not be there with the family of the victim. Well, black pastors are now going to be there in huge numbers this Thursday. There's a coordinated trip. He then mentioned the name of Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was never there in the first place. Now, Reverend Jesse Jackson is there. And then he objects to Reverend Jesse Jackson being there. You see, when you object, you preserve the record for appeal. And I think that is the tactic of this attorney. Thankfully, we have an attorney on the show that can tell me if I'm absolutely 100% off basis here. Attorney Adrienne Lawrence, have you been thinking along those lines also at all?
Yes, I definitely say that you are on point with this one, where we have this attorney here, this defense attorney trying to essentially create this narrative that possibly could be used by the defendants if they're convicted and they need to appeal. And what that attorney is kind of hoping is that maybe there will be some appellate judges out there who will play into this racist rhetoric, this thought that having black pastors in the courtroom in some way, despite the fact that, as the judge indicated, he didn't even notice if they were there or not. And so essentially all he's doing is dog whistling all day long and hoping that in the event that his clients are convicted, that he can dog whistle all the way to the appellate level. And it's really disgusting. And the good thing is this judge seems to be hip to the game.
The judge is definitely hip to the game, but Adrienne, this tactic may actually work. If there's a conviction, and we are hoping so, the appellate process may be different because you're right. In the appellate process, he could possibly find a very friendly judge to his case, just like the judge in the Rittenhouse case is very friendly to Rittenhouse. These judges exist. And at the appellate level, because of the discretionary of probative versus prejudicial, the appellate court can rule either way.
Yeah, you never know necessarily what those judges will do at the appellate level, especially since what I find that this defense attorney is trying to really signal and to indicate is the thought that you have these black pastors who have been involved in movements where whether they've been peaceful protests or whether they've been involved in riots or whatnot, it's the thought that there will be social unrest and upheaval, and that essentially the signaling of these pastors being present is a way to alert the jury that if you do not convict here, that you are going to have problems in your communities. And that's what I see the message is trying to intimate. But really it's based on ignorance, because these things are, it's by virtue of the fact that what we have here is a murder trial where a man was hunted down and killed like he was some kind of animal, despite what is abundantly clear to be his complete and total innocence. And so the fact is that justice should be done. And also this is an open courtroom. Whoever chooses to attend should be able to attend as part of the public justice system, and we, the people, having our right to play a role in the process.
Very well said, very well said. Let me shift gears to General Michael Flynn. General Flynn, former NSA advisor to former President Donald Trump, who has admitted to being a corrupt individual. He told the FBI, yeah, I'm guilty, I did it, I'm corrupt. He now says that the United States of America should have one religion. That religion should be Christianity. Here it is.
And they're talking about the United States of America. Talking about the United States of America, because when Matthew mentioned it in the Bible, he wasn't talking about the physical ground that he was on. He was talking about something in the distance. So if we are going to have one nation under God, which we must, we have to have one religion, one nation under God and one religion under God, right? All of us together, working together.
Okay, so a few things are problematic with his statement. Number one, he doesn't believe this. You see, Michael Flynn cannot get a check outside of QAnon. Nobody will give this guy a serious job. So he is on the QAnon speaking circuit and absolutely nothing else. He knows that. He needs to still make money. So he says things that connect directly with the QAnon base, number one. Number two, I find it quite ironic that he would spew something like this, knowing good and damn well he could not live under a theocratic government. See, a theocracy would say it's illegal to lie. You see, that would destroy all of them immediately, all right? So Michael Flynn is saying this, he's on this tour with QAnon, and he is promoting this one religion in the United States of America. Maybe he wants an official religion, but here's what's going to happen. They are going to dangle this carrot in the face of conservatives. This is the new red meat. And we've seen this happen before. This is just a political ploy. Now there's going to be a segment of this movement saying, we want Christianity declared the official religion of the United States of America. And people like Michael Flynn and others, they will say, oh, absolutely. All you gotta do is vote us in. Vote in the people that believe like us, and voila, we will do this for you. Even though it's contrary to the actual US Constitution. Let me be clear, to answer that issue, the US Constitution is a wholly secular document. It contains no mention of Christianity or Jesus Christ. In fact, the Constitution refers to religion twice. In the First Amendment, which bars laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And then in Article 6, which prohibits religious test for public office. Both of these provisions are evidence that the country was not founded as officially Christian. And many of what we deem to be the founding fathers practice what's called deism. All right, Attorney Lawrence, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this is another reach, as you mentioned, with Michael Flynn trying to make money by virtue of the fact that he is probably largely insolvent. It's just really sad seeing what these people are willing to do to our democracy, and knowing that they have essentially a lot of followers who aren't necessarily thinking that well or for themselves. And we also know that the fact is, to have a theocracy in our nation, it would completely undermine this idea of our democracy, and it would be essentially what the founding fathers were trying to get away from, arguably, when they came here and built this nation. It's unfortunate that we see individuals like Michael Flynn using their power to essentially corral the ignorant to really push this agenda.
And what's going to happen is that many inside of this movement, they will start believing that somehow they should now push for a one country religion, and that will save the nation somehow. And it's just so, it's not even authentic. I don't besmirch people's religious beliefs, but these guys typically don't believe what they say. All right, they're manipulating others. Do you think at any point, Adrienne, QAnon followers will get hip to the game that these cats are running on them?
You would like to think so, but I think a lot of them are not necessarily fully plugged in until they start suffering some severe consequences. As we've heard from a number of people who are facing charges or have been convicted with the January 6th insurrection, they really start realizing that Trump isn't there for them. I think it's a similar thing with QAnon, where they have to start getting those consequences to come in before they realize that this isn't necessarily the right thing to do.
Okay, totally unrelated, but I thought it was fascinating. The juice is loose. O.J. Simpson, okay? O.J. Simpson was at a bar having a good time. Now, I believe O.J. is a killer. That's what I believe, personally. You may disagree with me, and that's fine. I think he either killed those people or he was involved. That's just where I'm at. And then he gets arrested for stealing his own stuff. What an idiot. Now, we had the Me Too movement. We know that women's space, at least people like OJ should know this, that the space of a woman should be respected. And then this happens. Here it is. If I was a white woman next to OJ Simpson, I would have had that same look of complete horror on my face if he leaned in on me. If any white woman runs away from OJ, I would dare say they're not racist. That's understandable. Adrienne, I just had to cover it. He does all of these blogs and he goes on his social media rants on Twitter. He's out here living his best life. Like I said before, I think the guy got away with murder, so I don't have much love for him. What are your thoughts here?
Oh, I feel the same way you do. The audacity is surreal. Seeing him lean into that woman just to, get a little kiss on. It's like, come on, bruh. You are a known abuser, and arguably you've got, a few murders in your back pocket going on here, whether you're convicted of them or not. And so it's weird that he doesn't realize how fortunate he is to even be walking free, but to see him actually essentially disrupt women's spaces and lean in the way he did, this man is never gonna get it.
Yeah, and you gotta realize that his narcissism is clinical. And I didn't think of this until he wrote the book, If I Did It, right? And then outlined how he actually did it. But the issue is, this guy is likely gonna be incarcerated again. I mean, I would put good money that before OJ expires, he is going to go back to jail. Am I just too far off here?
No, I don't think you're wrong. He's not getting it. And he also already went to jail for that robbery charge. So it's like the man clearly doesn't get it. And he's just pretty much unapologetic, audacious, egregious, and it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, so we'll see. And his commentaries are insane. He does a lot of pontification about politics and sports and social issues, and he has a really strong following. Now, many people are following him and laughing at him, not with him. And they do continue to remind him that he is a killer on his social media pages. So, he puts himself out there like that on a regular basis. I guess he's okay with the attention. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it. We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of that, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award. Best web host. We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, news and information channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door. Haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes. Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against Philosophy. I told you we were coming.
Can you talk about it when it becomes a problem? Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
Back to back that I like.
Dave, say hi to the camera.
I don't like dates.
Welcome back. Okay, don't forget, Indisputable is available on podcast, okay? You can go right now to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, search for Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Click follow and rate us with 5 stars. As I've said before, some lame gave me 1, okay? So we need to show up in abundance here. If you like the program, and give us 5 stars, all right? Don't forget, big announcement, TYT is looking for you. If you can write, produce, host, and edit short form editorial videos on breaking news with a progressive point of view, Rebel HQ, we're looking for content creators. We'd love for you to join the team. If you want to apply, go right now to tyt.com/careers, tyt.com/careers. All right, let's get to the comments. Bonnie Allen says, oh, you mean like the Taliban? To have the religious, that's right. That's exactly what Michael Flynn means. Okay. Mickey C. the Silverhead Dragon says, Flynn furthering the fact that Republicans don't follow the Constitution, right? Just like they're evangelical Christians, they use the Bible and the Constitution to condone their hateful, violent beliefs and ignore the parts that condemn their actions. Yep. And I've always wondered, those who are so, let's make the Bible and the government the same, why have they never produced legislation to make lying illegal or to make adultery or fornication against the law? If you're gonna do it, lawmaker, do it all the way here. Don't pick and choose. Smurfy says, he was a 3 or 4-star general. That is frightening. That's a frightening thought. Someone like him was so far up in our military. Yeah, he's not the only one. Forbesilla, can we have this judge be the judge in the Rittenhouse trial? He seems a lot more competent. He really does. I mean, the contrast, Adrienne, you're an attorney, you've been in front of many judges. The contrast is really night and day here, right?
Oh, it's stark contrast. It's wild right now. But the good thing is a lot of America's watching, so they can see essentially the range of our judiciary.
That's right, that's right. Nana Nikki says, Flynn took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. I don't know if he's still considered retired and drawing a pension, but he should definitely be stripped of all military recognition. You would think that once he said that he was guilty of corruption, that the military was, all right, we got to get those things back. So I hope. I think this is Directive 4. Defense is basically saying, I can't find any good standing people to publicly sit in solidarity with my clients because they suck. Yeah. Coach RJ, this is how schools failed us. Do we know why those whites fled to America when they did? LOL, to get away from religion. I know it's really a simple lesson. They were leaving the guys that Michael Flynn is. That's what was happening. All right, Ricardo Chucky. OJ, she just wanted a story for the gram and got more juice than she wanted. That's it. She was just trying to get likes on the gram. Juice is loose. You got to be careful. Somebody may need to check on her. Okay, Kev Z 247. She ain't trying to be the next victim. No, that's right. That's why I said if I was a white woman, I don't play with OJ. Please don't play with OJ. This is a warning to all white women out here. Do not play around with OJ Simpson. Okay. Kyle A315. The judge is definitely better than the Rittenhouse judge, but that's a low standard. It really is a low standard, but yes, the contrast is there. Wizard McCoy says, so Flynn wants to rewrite the Constitution now. I thought they always quote the Constitution when it's their rights they view being violated. Boom. But remember, it's the same thing with their Bible, right? They quote the parts that they feel supports the argument. Same thing. Egypt 5. If I was a white woman next to OJ, I would stop being one of those two things. I would stop being one of those two things. And the easier one is the one involved with location. That was funny. I appreciate the laugh today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
You're still free. Back off. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Call cops! Somebody call cops on this. Call cops! Call them!
Get out of my face.
Call cops! 911 now! Victor, get my wallet! Call cops, bitch! Call cops! Call them! 911!
For what?
485! Call cops!
Are you okay?
Call cops! Stupid slutty! Call the cops! Call the cops! Call the cops! Yeah, you call the cops. Oh, why aren't you calling? Victor, give me my phone! Bitch, give me my phone! Cops! I'm calling the cops on this. He's recording me.
Yeah, he tried to hit me.
Report domestic violence.
He literally tried to hit me. He literally me and hit me for no reason. I have no idea who he is.
Maloney.
I thought he was freaking out as his boyfriend. I was just walking to my car, and then he came up to me and he spit on me, and then he pushed me and hit me in my shoulder, and he just called me.
He's been saying the N-word to her the entire time. Hit her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to see what was going to happen when that fella jumped that fence. But we don't have that video. Maybe we'll get it. I'm requesting it. Okay, this particular male, Karen, was screaming the N-word, was singing the N-word. I have never seen that before, by the way. I've never seen somebody literally hold a tune while just saying the N-word over and over again. But this is a first for me. We've identified him. Let's put his picture up. He obviously likes to perform. He wants to be famous. We will oblige. He has been identified as San Diego resident Nathaniel Maloney. He would eventually be handcuffed by police. Maloney's Facebook profile revealed a very profane, graphic attack on President Joe Biden as his last post. I will give you one guess as to who he supports for president. All right, Adrienne, what are your thoughts here?
You know what, it seems really scary to be in that situation, to not know that person, to not know why they are coming at you, but they are unleashing all sorts of just tomfoolery, nonsense, and ignorance, and especially an individual of that size. So I really feel for that woman, and I'm glad she was able to record it. And I too would very much like to see what happened after that man jumped the fence, because he looked like he was ready for something. And there might be a reason we didn't see the rest of that footage, because who knows? But still, like these people out here, we should not be giving them kind of that benefit of the doubt when it comes to the thought of maybe they are inebriated, intoxicated, or have mental health issues. No, I think a lot of these people have chosen this route, and this is the direction that they're going, whether or not we think it's logical. The fact is that they're choosing this and that they need to be held accountable.
It is interesting, Adrienne, what we are finding as of late. Cameras or the smartphone recording a person's action no longer shames them into straightening up their behavior. The reason why the phone typically starts recording is not to document, it's for safety.
Yep.
Because there was a time when that record button would be hit and the person would go the other way. That person would try to hide their face. Why do you think this massive shift has taken place to where nobody, or at least people that exhibit this level of Karenicity, they do not seem to care that they are being recorded in this moment?
Well, I think that there has been a drop in the bar in terms of etiquette and people really caring about their reputations and opinions. What we saw with the Trump era is the fact that he can have himself and many others out there essentially engaging in like racism, all sorts of sexism, and just saying things that are just utterly offensive and disgusting, yet they still stay on top and they still continue to do fine. So people are seeing this, and I think that they're thinking the same thing will happen to them, that, oh, I'll survive. It'll be perfectly fine.
And maybe they become a hero, because remember, we saw, this was before some of these exhibitions started. We saw people who clearly were, who clearly killed unarmed black people, right? And then after the video comes out, they get a GoFundMe that raises $300,000, $400,000. So they become a hero right? You got people that are praised for killing unarmed black people or for saying the N-word publicly. And these individuals become stars to a certain segment of American society. So I think part of it is exactly what you said. And then there's this other part where there's a crowd that will celebrate them in their insane racism against somebody else.
Yep. They are doing it for the likes, the clicks, and the fact that they think they will be just fine in the aftermath. And the problem is that too many people are enjoying that kind of legacy right now, where they've said all sorts of things on camera and they are uplifted and they do just fine.
Yeah, and that's why people that employ others, you have to really, really enforce those morality clauses, because typically every job you work for has a morals clause. And that means that what you do outside of your job, if it brings a reputation issue back to that job, you can be let go, right? So we need to make sure that employers are stepping up and doing what they're supposed to do here. Okay, Adrienne, have you ever went to a play and it was not as good as you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I think so.
It happens, right? I've been to a movie.
Yeah,
I don't really do
definitely.
plays, right? But I've been out, thought the thing that I was going to see would have been better than it was. You know what I didn't do? I didn't do this. Double dose.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life. Oh my God. Christmas carol thing is to get out of a Christmas carol. Get out of my country. Boo. Boo. I thought she was British. You ruined my night at the play. Yours is gonna suck. She You didn't tell them to stop mocking me, Elton. And that's why this stands here. They're mocking Shakespearean drama while they watch an English play in their own. Losers! Losers, all of you! You don't know what that is. I am waiting for the cops to bring me.
Get her out of here.
Got her meds.
I will remain until they come out. Stop mocking me! 1,000 people are mocking one! This is not violence!
No.
Get out of the British play if you don't like drama! Stop doing it!
Okay, as I was saying, I wish I had a life to where I could get upset about some things that upset white people. I mean, if what offended me was somebody who did a bad, I don't know, Shakespeare play, a parody of it, and it got me that angry, because that's just the worst thing you can do based on my experiences, exposures, and environments. That would be a remarkable, privileged life. But I have to get upset about things that are connected to me and my community, quite different. So this person decided to give her bad review. This Karen gave her review of this particular play in real time, and then decided to go racist by saying, go back to your country, which seems to be a default line by many Karens when they're upset about random things. Did you see the same here, Adrienne?
Oh yeah, that individual, I do not necessarily know what her issue was, but by virtue of the fact that that was her response, that tells us that she has a lot of audacity, and I do hope she was arrested for her behavior and the disturbance, because it is very disturbing for people around you. If you are holding this racist sentiment, this ethnocentrism and this xenophobia, at least take it outside, but you need not interrupt other people's enjoyment of entertainment. It may not entertain you, but go find something that does, like a Klan rally.
That was hilarious. And we have gone away from the days of calling corporate, speaking to a manager. Remember Karens would do that? I mentioned yesterday, like that used to be the level, the height of Karenicity. And maybe you get an email, maybe they go on the 5-star review page. But now this is happening, and we will see if there's a follow-up to it. We have no information that this person has been arrested. But remember, Adrienne, just a few days ago, there was another Karen on a comedy club stage, decided to go up to the stage during a comedy routine because she was offended. Well, I'm going to comedy shows. Honestly, some jokes actually did offend me personally. I never thought that I should go on the stage and stop the comedy set. Now, here's my question. What do you think she would have done if the management and security did not intervene? Was she going to take the microphone? Like, what's the end game here? What's the goal?
I don't think she had fully fleshed that out in her mind, but I definitely could, see her on stage. And I don't know if she would have taken it to another level, made it her own pulpit and given her sermon. But she has some serious issues because you can always leave. You can always not patronize that institution, that establishment, that event. That is how you should show your disgust or your, lack of appreciation for whatever content they're putting out. You shouldn't necessarily get up, interrupt it, scream, and essentially embarrass yourself and your family name.
Yeah, very well said. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
I want you to take on the spirit of one of my sheroes, Harriet Tubman, who said these words: if you hear the dogs barking, keep going. The torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. If you want to taste of freedom, keep going. Is it right or wrong that somebody has a living wage? Is it right or wrong to have paid family medical leave? Is it right or wrong to cancel student debt? Is it right or wrong to make sure that no matter who you love, how you identify, that you get the opportunity to live a good life too? This boils down to right or wrong. It's just that simple.
It's about saying to people who work for you, this will not be tolerated on horseback, on bicycle, on tricycle. You will not treat people like this. They are human beings.
Because with these hands, we will rise.
Nina Turner steps into the direct fire sometimes in the name of the people.
And is that we have become numb to some of the very real challenges in this country.
They don't care. I want to say something else, but I know we're going to keep the PG. They just don't care.
You get to keep your doctor. Don't let them scare you about that, because it's not government taking over the service. Dr. Dooley, can I get an amen? Okay, we got a doctor in the house. If you want clean water, clean air, clean food, keep going. If you want a better country, a better world for yourselves and future generations, you must. And if you know that we are in this fight together, you must.
Did you know that more than 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon? Why? Because of trees. I know what you're thinking. Of course! So what do we want to do? We want to plant more trees so we can save the climate. It's quite literal. So that's what leads to our new partner, Plant Your Change. Love it. It's so easy. What they do is you take the credit or debit cards you already have and you plug it into the system. And if you so choose, you get to round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and they plant a tree for you, okay? Now you could also choose if you wanna do it on only certain kinds of purchases or only so often, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but literally every cent makes a difference here. It's Plant Your Change, and if you wanna know more information, just go to tyt.com/trees. Let's go save the planet together.
Now, top. No. No. No.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Welcome back. Okay, we got a lot of comments. Let's get to it. TYT member, Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon. I moved out to the boonies 40 years ago, and other than when I had to work, I became almost a total hermit. How could I have known that it would become a necessity with all the loonies out there? Imploded Brandy says, boy, back to your country while watching a play that originated in another country. What the? Great American Healthcare Famine says, holy cow, Dr. Richey, that is an all-timer Karen. Rarely do you see a public display like that in the theater. You know, we really do need to have, like, who's that guy that does the National Geographic voice? We need to hire that guy to narrate Karens in the wild, in their natural habitat. And we're just observing them, and then here comes an anti-Karen. Let's wait to see what happens here. I missed that. Okay, super chat. I think this is Chercusian. Forgive me if I said it wrong. I had a Karen come out of her house to yell at me and my 11-month-old baby for letting the dog pee on the bush next to the sidewalk on public land. I could just picture that happening. I know that happened to you. I'm sorry that happened to you. Poor thing. I hope the baby's okay. Bernie the Kiwi Dragon. Don't let her know Shakespeare has been translated into Klingon. All right, Dark Angel 3. My bro came up with a good one this morning. Come on, everyone, sing along to the Chia Pet theme song. Karen, I like that.
Nice.
Last call says, need the rest of the video. We do. Big Wiggy says he was river dancing while saying the N-word. That's what it was. He was river dancing while saying the N-word. You know, there's some things that just bring a lot of joy to people. And obviously him saying the N-word just really set his soul on fire. Cheryl Parker, wow. Shakespeare is rolling in his grave. Jax Drax, I'm sick of harassers and abusers crying, acting like they are the victim. Self-victimization is strong in the hateful bullies of the world. I concur. Let me take you to a very sad story. I felt so bad for this woman who literally was kicked out of a church because they thought she had marijuana when it was actually cilantro. It was seasoning. Here's part of the video.
That's messed up, bro. That's y'all are people of God. Y'all's gonna do that. Y'all's gonna do that. Y'all's gonna do that. Y'all are people of God, and y'all's gonna do that to me.
You're gonna bring drugs in here.
That's the cilantro. That's for the food. That's for the menudo. That's for this. Look, sir, I promise you, that's menudo. It's for this. Look, that is original or whatever. That's that's for this. That's not weed. That's for the menudo. Ask anybody in there.
You need to stop.
Sir, I promise you, that's for the menudo. You can smell it. That's the food. Smell it. I promise you. I'm not like that. Like, I'm not like that. That's why I'm so mad. I'm not like that. Look, smell it, ma'am. It's for the food.
I think we've already asked you to leave. Just go ahead and go.
I mean, I'll leave, but just so you could confirm it. I'll leave, just so you could confirm it. It's for the food. Smell it, ma'am. It's for this. It's for this.
Hey,
it's for the menudo.
Lady, can you just please smell?
No, I am calm. It's just they trying to say that it was something.
Hey, listen to me. Listen to me. I'm right in the middle of the sermon. I'm the pastor, so you're disrupting the church. Chill.
That made me want to cry.
Chill. Is this your food you're trying to bring it in?
They try to say that I brought marijuana, but it's for this. It's the original.
Chill. You understand? I'm right in the middle of the sermon.
Yeah, I understand. I know.
So
but
what I'm asking you is to
instead of showing me and telling me.
No. I just asked everybody to stop right in the middle of my sermon. So I'm asking you to just.
I am. That was just wrong for them to do that.
No. It's a policy that I set.
It is. But you could have smelled it.
Stop. What I'm asking you to do right now is pause, and then you and I are going to discuss this afterwards. Okay? So just pause. All right?
I feel so bad for this woman, having to explain her food because of the assumption that she's bringing in drugs to a church. It's seasoning. And then when they realize she's right and they are wrong, you still need to get out. You're being loud. Leave. We told you to leave already. We don't care that we're wrong. Go, leave. Then the pastor comes out. He's good at what he does, but he's the same guy. He's the same person as them. Who do you think trained them? He did. They are a reflection of his leadership. He's just better at it, making it seem like he's the calming voice of reason. He's the one who said, no, I have a policy. The hell are you talking about, preacher? You have a policy against cilantro? You should have a policy that looks somewhat like you giving a damn about the least of these. That's what your policy should say. I mean, I'm sorry you had your sermon interrupted. I'm sure you were preaching real good about white Jesus and all of the values and all of the great things that God would do for people and how we should love humanity. And then you come out and you do this to a child of God who has been criticized by members of your congregation. I'll be damned, preacher. And that's not it. Here's more video.
I bring my daughter here all the time. Why would I do that? Pinches viejos, pinches güeros no saben. Excuse me, can I get my food back?
I don't have it.
So y'all just throw it away?
I didn't do anything with it.
Can you ask him? Because that's for my food. That's what I put on my food. That's how I eat it. That's like the...
Oh, I think my husband has it.
Can you ask him if I can have it back?
You can ask him.
Have it back.
Well,
it's my food. I literally
trying to give you our time, you know.
I know, but it's.
I'm gonna have it tested, and.
Oh, you could do that, but it's my food.
If you want it back, we can call the police.
I mean, it's food.
He's around there somewhere, and I think he's gone.
Okay.
So.
You heard him. You can't have it back. We're gonna have it tested. If you want your food back, call the police. They stole this woman's food, accused her of bringing drugs into the church, which she absolutely did not do. When they realized they were wrong, instead of actually admitting to their failure to be sensible, they decided to double down and still say, you have to get out. And they called her lady. Lady, you have to leave. Lady, you have to get out. The lady has a name. Her name is Ashley. Ashley Antiveros. Ashley said she was upset at how she was recently treated by members of Redemption Mission Methodist Church, 1320 North Pennsylvania. Let me say that again. Redemption Mission Methodist Church, 1320 North Pennsylvania. That's who stole her food after accusing her of bringing a bag of marijuana to the church when it was actually a bag containing cilantro and oregano. The woman told KOCO Channel 5 that the bag also contained limes and onions. Yeah. She was bringing food there because that ministry is connected to a jail ministry. And she was bringing food there to share with her sister, an inmate who attends the church service at Redemption Mission. The church claims that it was against their policy to bring food to people. But that's not what that argument was about, was it? The argument was that she had marijuana and she never did. Adrienne, things like this really piss me off.
Absolutely, and I just felt so much anger. And the fact that this woman who is trying to participate in these Christian activities is confronted with the most un-Christ-like behavior, where she is essentially being judged. This is unconscious or conscious bias at play, essentially associating what she has as being drugs as opposed to seasoning. And I know there's a great joke out there with the thought that these people cannot recognize seasoning when they see it, but at the same time, what they're doing is essentially changing this woman's life, because to be accused of bringing drugs, especially from people who preach this ministry, that's very, very, very hurtful. It is damaging beyond belief. And for them to have maintained that mentality, even after they knew they were wrong, this tells you these people are not Christ-like, nor should they be in any kind of position in which they are in. And this is just, it's disgusting.
Yep, well said. All right, let me show you another person who should not be in their position. What if I told you there was a cop, an actual police detective, who went to a strip club and decided to skip on the bill, owing a whole lot of money? That's not it. It gets deeper. This is a Baltimore police detective who has now been charged with theft, assault, and destruction of property after attempting to leave a strip club without paying his tab. The detective's name is Robert Burns. Detective Burns, a 27-year veteran of that department, was charged as police say he tried to leave Ches Joey on the block, the city's red light district on Baltimore Street, without paying after midnight early Sunday morning. Okay, this guy's already a piece of work. Charging documents state that a bartender at the bar alleged Burns and retired officer Brian Hake did not pay their tabs, which totaled more than $1,000. Hake and Burns both joined the department in 1994. They're buddies. See the record show? When a fellow officer approached Burns and Hake to pay their outstanding tabs, charging documents state that both of these cops refused, with Hake claiming he already paid his. Burns then tried to violently push his way through the officers and out of the establishment, and he ripped the jacket of one of the cops. Now, why is he acting like this? Because he's pulling rank. He's a detective. How dare you approach me about not paying my tab, right? He doesn't care about the industry or the women that have worked all night. I don't moralize against those who are in the industry of exotic dancing. Okay, it's a profession for many. But this cop, this is a dirty move here. Everybody should agree. All right, get out of my face. I will destroy all of you. I mean, he sounds like Denzel on Training Day. Get out of my face. I will destroy all of you. Burns is alleged to have said while pushing through the group of responding officers. One of the responding officers eventually pointed his taser at Burns. Charging documents state threatening to use it if he did not comply and telling him he'd be arrested if he left the club without paying. And then Burns told him, "I'm calling your bluff." Well, he was right. They did not tase him. When Burns got outside, they arrested him. He is currently being charged with second-degree assault, theft, and destruction of property. They're doing the hide and seek thing with this cop's photo. So I don't have a picture of Detective Robert Burns, but I got a picture of his boss. Let's put his boss up here. Baltimore PD commissioner, he's the man in charge. Buck stops with him. Michael S. Harrison. All right. Quite insane here. Not only did he skip out on this tab, he probably did not intend to pay it at all, which is a crime, by the way. And he then commits assault on police officers. What are your thoughts here, Adrienne?
Well, I think these individuals thought that they were above the law. And the fact is that these individuals who are working in this establishment are hardworking people, and they don't deserve to be treated this way. And we could expect that the officers would not be doing this at Macy's. So why do they feel that they can do this at this establishment? And it also makes me think that they've probably abused their positions of power before. And you know what? I really know that these departments, they need to do more to crack down on this, because what those officers probably did was think that that the individuals working at this establishment weren't worthy of protection, that society wouldn't care, and thus they can exploit, take advantage of them, do whatever they want. And those are the people that need the most protection because of mentalities like that.
That's right. And don't think this is isolated. Don't think they're just bad guys at the strip club. Don't think they just fight and commit criminal activity at a strip club and theft at a strip club. This is connected to their core character. All right, I got a question. What in the red state hell?
You can take a gun, shoot somebody in the face. It's not hard. Sometimes it might even be fun if they're a godless commie.
Now, what they're trying to do is sneak the COVID vaccine in your salads.
I hate math. Somebody say amen.
White on white crime is getting out of control in this country. Adrienne, what are your thoughts here?
I think these people have a problem. Like, what is going on? Why do you, it's a groundskeeper at the dog park? It's like, what level of low have you hit? As much as I want to say, do not blame this on mental health, do not blame this on alcohol or abusive substances. I just think that people don't know how to act coming out of this pandemic. I really am starting to think that people, they need more going on in their lives, because this is real something. This ain't gonna work. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, they need to go back home. Thank you so much, Adrienne. Always a pleasure having you on Indisputable. Tell people how they can follow you.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Adrienne Law, on Instagram at Adrienne Lawrence, and also you can check out my videos on Rebel HQ, where I'm dropping my legal knowledge on my segments Overruled. And should you want a great book on essentially how to make sure you stay on top in the workplace, check out Staying in the Game, the playbook for beating workplace sexual harassment. It is out in the TYT store as well as everywhere books are sold.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you so much, sister. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, we got more on the other side. The bullpen is next. Stick and stay.
So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. Hey, remember we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Ro Khanna became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since. What we mainly do is amplify the progressive voice and candidates out there, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Right now, we're currently #1 most engaged news politics network online, beating CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of them. We're #1 in total minutes watched. That means not only the number of people watching, but how long they watch. We just crossed 20 million followers and 500 million monthly views. Now, why? That's because actually the country's progressive. It's 2/3 progressive, and you guys have allowed us to be your voice, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So what did we do with that voice? Well, let's look at 2019. We went all over the country talking to you guys and the candidates. So we were in Miami, we were in Detroit, we were in Houston, and we were in Iowa. In fact, we were all over Iowa. You guys were all over Iowa, and all of the candidates saw you guys. We had wonderful people speaking, like the one and only Nina Turner at our rallies. Bernie Sanders stopped by, Andrew Yang, Elizabeth Warren. We interviewed almost everyone on the campaign trail, with the exception of Biden and Buttigieg. And we held them accountable. We even did a progressive economic pledge, and so many wonderful people signed on to that. Bernie Sanders, Warren, Marianne Williamson, AOC, the entire squad, Justice Democrats, and so many others. Now, on top of all that, we started a show called The Conversation, where we featured so many progressive thinkers, writers, and candidates. And one of the candidates we featured in 2019 was Jamal Bowman. Here comes Jamal Bowman. Then we had an amazing 2020. We hired a climate reporter. Damage Report passed 500,000 subscribers. Young Turks passed 5 million subscribers. We're getting the message out to more and more people. Bernie Sanders comes on in the heat of the primary. He comes on after the election to say what we're going to do for the future. And then Marie Newman wins. Jamal Bowman wins. Cori Bush wins. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, here comes Nina Turner. Hello, somebody. And she's running for Congress, and she comes on the Young Turks first. On election week, we had nearly 2 million hours of viewing. With #1 destination for progressives. You made all that happen. This is amazing, and thank you for those 2 years. What, I went past 2 minutes? Of course!
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Welcome back. Okay, let me read some of these amazing comments. We got a lot of them. I will get to as many as I can, okay? Electric Miscellaneous says, she didn't bring marijuana, she brought cilantro. They thought she wanted to use it to get baked, but instead she just wanted to use it to bake. I see what you did there. Nigga see the silver-haired dragon. I'm in the middle of my sermon, and you being wrongly accused isn't nearly as important as me talking. The only one disrupting the sermon is the ignorant who accused her of bringing drugs to the church. And you would think a Christian pastor would have some level of sympathy for somebody who has been wrongly accused. You know what I mean? Okay, the great American healthcare famine. I can almost guarantee that church has a mission statement somewhere that says something like, all are welcome. And I wish I was joking. No, you are right. There's some mission statement says all are welcome, or come as you are. Except with cilantro, obviously. Industrial Arts Denver saved Julius Jones. Thank you for that. Dragonheart. I don't know if you know that the original Pledge of Allegiance did not have the words under God in it. It infuriates me the kids have to say it no matter what they believe. Twix, Jax Drax, just a few bad apples, huh? Every single day we see more and more examples of police abusing their power. It's as if the good apples are just a myth. Very good point. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. Yep, in the bullpen today, we have Pedro Gonzalez, associate editor at Chronicles, a magazine of American culture. This person has written for America Greatness, Fox News, Newsweek, New York Post, Washington Times, Daily Caller. The list goes on and on. You can check him out. Has an extensive and impressive resume. Pedro, good day. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We're going to chop it up about the Rittenhouse case, which is a hot topic at the moment, hot button issue, and also criminal justice as a system. We'll talk about both of those dynamics. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about the Rittenhouse case or the criminal justice system. So if you would share with us your sentiment.
I think my sentiment is nuanced, we'll say that.
Okay.
On the one hand, I have written extensively about the problems of the surveillance and the security state. Perhaps the most prominent example of this is Capitol Police opening new field offices outside of the Capitol in places like California and Florida, while deploying military technology with the help of the US Army that was first implemented and used to surveil civilians in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this is a topic that I've written about extensively, but obviously I'm also someone who comes down on the side of law and order. I'm not pro-rioting. I'm not pro-anarchy. And it seems to me that in parts of the country, the police are something like afraid to do their jobs because of reprisal. That's not true in every part of the country, but it's certainly true in some parts of the country. So we'll start there.
Okay, so I would assume you do agree with me that the January 6th riot was in fact a riot and a criminal act.
I'll say that it was a riot.
Okay. Did they commit criminal trespass?
I'm not sure. Frankly, the January 6th thing is really boring to me. I don't think it was, in terms of the repercussions of that, in terms of the scale of destruction, I think it's insignificant compared to last year's riots.
Okay, but I am going to ask you anyway, even if it does bore you, Pedro. Do you think what they did, those that breached secure areas, did they in fact commit criminal trespass? The reason why I'm asking you this line of questioning is because in your opening statement, you talked about police officers basically not doing their job because they are afraid of something. Now you are a pontificator, you are a pundit, you are a writer, you are a conveyor of stories and a conveyor of facts. So when I ask you a question, don't be afraid to tell the truth, brother. The truth will set you free. On January 6th, did individuals commit criminal acts? I will start with criminal trespass.
I can't give you a straight answer because this is not a straight question. there is evidence that police malfeasance may have actually resulted in that riot, like it has elsewhere in the country. So I actually think this is not a yes or no question.
Do you think anyone committed the crime of destruction or destroying property?
Sure.
Okay. Do you think that people committed the crime of assault on other individuals, in particular, Capitol police officers who have testified to that fact?
Sure.
Okay, so there were criminals, people committed criminality on January 6th. So we got that clear. Let's talk about the Capitol Police because you brought them up. I understand, I'm not a police state guy, okay? For obvious reasons. Hasn't always worked out for people in my community. Over-policing is the prerequisite in the criminal justice system for a whole lot of discriminatory actions that have been taken against people of color. So I understand what you're saying. I do think it's important to note that the Capitol Police are not the police for the Capitol. They are federal police. And their jurisdiction by way of statute is federal. So when they open up an office somewhere in another state, it's not as if there's some contradiction with a statutory dynamic. They are federal police. When we discuss the Kyle Rittenhouse case, just generally, just as a narrative, there's this strong sentiment, especially among conservatives, that Kyle Rittenhouse was simply an individual who wanted to protect property and was defending his life, and that's why he killed 2 people and almost killed a 3rd. Do you agree with that narrative, or is there nuance in that narrative to you?
The basic narrative that Kyle acted in self-defense, yes, I agree with that.
Do you think he was in lawful possession of the firearm?
Yes.
Okay, tell me why.
Because it was not a short-barreled rifle, and in Wisconsin, the statute only applies to rifles that have a certain barrel length. Kyle's wasn't. That's why that charge was dismissed by a judge.
Let me read to you the statute. This is Wisconsin State Law 948.60 2A. It states, any person under 18 years of age who possesses or goes armed with a dangerous weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. The statute itself actually does not determine what that dangerous weapon is. The statute says, as I just read to you. So let me ask you, was what Kyle Rittenhouse had in his hand, was it a dangerous weapon?
No, this is a misdirection. Look, the judge made a call.
It's a direct question to you, sir.
No, it's not. It's not a direct question. The judge dismissed the charge because there's a statute that says clearly that whether or not an 18-year-old can have that type of weapon.
I just read the statute to you.
What?
So I just read the statute to you.
Then no, you're omitting the clause. It's irrelevant. Look, I don't have the statute in front of me, but it's irrelevant if you don't want to read it. The judge made a call based on the letter of the law. It wasn't a short-barreled rifle, then the charge is dismissed. It's that simple. If you don't like it, pass a law to change it.
Let me tell you where you're getting the statute confused. Once again, for the sake of those who are watching, I'm going to read what the statute says. You can look me up. 948-60 2A states, any person under 18 years of age who possesses or goes armed with a dangerous weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. There is no debate that Kyle Rittenhouse was 17 years of age when the killings and attempted killing took place. There's no argument about that. There's no argument about that whatsoever. Now, the part that you're getting mixed up here is talking about the size of the weapon, right? Well, in the interpretation or the statutory clause beyond that, it's talking about for hunting purposes, specifically for hunting purposes. So one could definitely argue that if Kyle Rittenhouse was hunting, that's the reason why he was asked by the prosecutor, did you plan to hunt with the weapon? If he was hunting, then maybe there's some wiggle room here as far as who can have authority or oversight over the young man. The killer, Kyle Rittenhouse, did not get that gun in order to go hunting. Do you not find it ironic that the person that illegally got the gun for him has been charged with 2 felonies?
I find it strange that you're trying to make an argument that is clear-cut self-defense, a minor who defended himself against a convicted pedophile who anally raped 5 little boys and a repeat domestic abuser who held family hostage with a knife, and Gage Grosskreutz, a member of a paramilitary organization that tried to execute Kyle Rittenhouse. You're trying to reframe this into an argument over the interpretation of the First Amendment and whether one can actually defend themselves when their life is at stake.
That's not the argument. And
yes,
Pedro,
it is. It's the argument. You're trying to read this hunting argument into the basis of the First Amendment, which is whether or not. So are you saying that Kyle should have just, oh, I'm sorry, I'm illegally in possession of this rifle, I'll just put it down and allow these people to kill me? Is that your argument?
Let me answer that question, and I will answer that question directly. And let me remind you that all that you have said about the victims, if true, think about this, Pedro.
There are records. Think about this. They're convicted.
That means that in your world, people that have prior bad acts deserve to die.
No, in my world, when a pedophile tries to wrest a rifle from a kid who's retreating and doing everything he can to de-escalate the situation, when a pedophile tries to physically assault a minor, that minor has a right to kill them.
So is he a minor or an adult? But Pedro, I get what you're saying, but let me just put some clarity here. Those individuals should have exactly what Kyle Rittenhouse has right now, and it's called due process. But due process was taken away from them by a 17-year-old who decided to take the law in his own hands.
They forfeited it when they tried to kill him, as he was trying to turn himself into police. That's what Anthony Huber did. He hit him with a skateboard, knocked him down. Kyle Rittenhouse gets kicked in the head.
Pedro,
Anthony Huber hits him twice.
Are you aware
what do you want? Do you want these people to lay down and die as their city's being burned? If you want to be angry at somebody, be angry at the state government.
Okay, Pedro, do you agree with Rittenhouse that he was there in order to protect property?
Yes.
Okay, are you aware that it's also statutory law in Wisconsin that it is illegal to use deadly force in the protection of property? Did you know that?
When he was attacked, was he protecting property or himself? When he was attacked, was he protecting no, it's a simple question, answer it. Was he protecting a car wash? Or was he protecting himself from someone who was trying to disarm him, who had told him, I'm going to cut your heart out, I'm going to kill you?
Let me tell you what I've learned. And listen, I'm just a second-year law student, but something I learned.
I'm not a law student.
Okay, something I learned about the law. If you have a weapon, number one, if you have a weapon illegally and you go into a contentious situation and you provoke others and you are attacked or someone tries to disarm you because you have illegally armed yourself, you cannot then yell self-defense.
Rittenhouse was trying to put out a fire. Hold on, extinguishing a fire is provoking others? That's what he was doing when Joseph Rosenbaum charged him.
Okay, Pedro, think about it. Is the new normal now? I want you to really think about this. If I'm not supposed to be in possession of a firearm, and I go get one, and I go into a contentious situation, and I have my firearm, and somebody tries to disarm me, I'm not in lawful possession of it, and I kill them. Is that now the new normal? Should there be any penalty, repercussion whatsoever?
How do you feel about Gage Grosskreutz, who was also illegally in possession of the handgun that he tried to kill Rittenhouse with? Because he had actually been arrested for being intoxicated while brandishing a firearm. Why isn't that a talking point?
Bring to your attention a guy named Ronnie Purvis. Ronnie Purvis had a firearm inside of a mall. Ronnie Purvis used it in order to kill an individual who attempted to attack him inside of the mall. Witnesses galore. Ronnie Purvis is a black male. Ronnie Purvis was arrested and prosecuted for manslaughter because even though the prosecutor said clearly this was self-defense, Mr. Purvis had no right to that gun in the first place because Mr. Purvis was a convicted felon and he got sentenced to 15 years.
Okay, you didn't answer the question about Gage, you just gave this other example. And I can give you a counter example of a man named Jake Gardner, a white man who called the police because BLM was tearing up his bar. And when he got attacked, after he and his father were attacked, knocked to the ground several times, he fired a shot over his shoulder that killed the guy that was trying to choke him out. A prosecutor initially declined to file charges because it's cut and dry self-defense. BLM bucks the system, demands a grand jury and a special prosecutor. Jake Gardner, without any new evidence, goes from a self-defense case to 4 felonies, and he ends up killing himself because he lost faith in the justice system. So, I mean, we can do this all day, give counter examples of this, but you didn't actually answer the question about Gage Grosskreutz. Do you think he should have been there with a weapon? He was out of state, by the way.
If there is any person who is unlawfully armed, they should not be unlawfully armed. That's period. There's no debate with me about that, none whatsoever. I have a different take on this than you do. I think Kyle Rittenhouse and his state of mind should be front and center in this case. The judge has kept it out. But you know and I know that 15 days before he killed those 2 individuals and tried to kill a third, he said on the video to those who were running out of a store, he wished he had his AR so he could kill them, right? So he can shoot at them. Does that not say murder to you?
When you actually consider what happened that night and the fact that in both instances, in the first instance, Joseph Rosenbaum had already threatened to kill him several times, and Kyle Rittenhouse didn't act on that impulse that you just laid out here. And in fact, he tried to run away from Joseph Rosenbaum. Same thing with Anthony Huber. He was trying to turn himself into the cops. He got hit 4 times before shooting Anthony Huber. 3 times by him, and then once by some random person, and only then did he pull the trigger. So your argument about intent falls apart when you actually consider that Rittenhouse did everything he could to de-escalate the situation. The fact is that he's white. That's the basis of this whole lynching.
Pedro, oh, come on, man. Now you are assuming the reason that I believe Kyle Rittenhouse is a killer. You should know better than that. I think he's a killer because he said 15 days before the killing that he wanted to kill.
What he said is irrelevant. What did he do?
Wait a minute, how in the hell is somebody saying, I'm going to murder someone? How in the hell, hold on, Pedro. How is that irrelevant when someone says, I'm gonna murder this person, and then they end up doing it?
And then miraculously, he doesn't actually act on it. He tries to disengage and turn himself into the cops. What does that say? Actually, that shows his remarkable self-restraint. If someone tries to jump on you, he actually shot Joseph Rosenbaum after the second time he tried to take his gun away. In other words,
well, his gun should have been taken away. I would have tried to disarm him my damn self. I would have snuffed him though.
You think of
I would not have taken it in the front, but I definitely
should have been able to disarm a minor.
Yeah, you're damn right. Somebody who is, you know why? Because here's what the law says. Here's what the law says, sir. Pedro, once again, the law says that anyone, any person under the age of 18 who possesses or goes armed with a dangerous weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. I'll be damned if I let a kid walk around with a semi-automatic weapon anywhere that I'm in. I will absolutely try to disarm him.
And why was he walking around with it? Because the state government was paralyzed by Black Lives Matter. They could have called in the National Guard. They could have stopped the rioting, but they didn't, precisely because of this narrative.
Got you. All right, we only have a few minutes left to talk about the criminal justice system as a whole, which we'll agree to talk about as well. We're gonna agree to disagree on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, but we probably do agree that he will likely get off and be found not guilty. Sad day in America. Sad day in America. All right, the criminal justice system as a whole, over 90% of Americans believe that police reform is necessary. 58% of Republicans believe that this is truly a bipartisan issue. There's really nobody on the fence about police reform on some level, police accountability, etc. And then when we look at prison rates in America, the programs that actually create that lessen the school to prison pipelines, typically conservatives defund those programs. What are your thoughts about it?
There's a lot there. I think that there's a room for a discussion about reform, but I think that oftentimes the people that are the loudest in this discussion are not actually calling for something like reasonable reform, and they're instead capitalizing on public opinion that's created by these media narratives of basically just police being malicious and executing minorities every chance they get, which is not true. So I think that there is actually room for a debate here, but more often than not, what we're actually getting is district attorneys that are allowing hardened criminals to go free. And curiously enough, last year, it's the people that we're supposed to be helping here, minorities, right? Well, something like 56% of Latino Democrats supported deploying the National Guard to assist police in putting down the riots, that according to a CBS poll. There's actually a ton of polling that shows that the same people that you think are, begging for us to defund the police or whatever, empty out prisons, are also the ones that these policies directly affect. And then they change their minds, or you find out that the polling was wrong.
What's really hypocritical, Pedro, is that you can moralize on Black Lives Matter, even though less than 1% of any Black Lives Matter protest created any riotous behavior.
Less than 1%, and yet they caused about $2 billion worth of damage. So you have the most destructive rioting in American history.
Pedro, I allowed you to talk, but I only got a few minutes left, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish. But you can moralize on Black Lives Matter, right? You can moralize on protesters who are involved in a protest that may be left-leaning. But you cannot call the terrorist attack on January 6th, which basically all white people who ran into a US Capitol.
Which one of these things is more destructive? It's a simple question. Which one was more destructive?
If you are a principled individual, you can clearly call out what happened on January 6th, but you're scared to do that because that's your crew. You're scared to go against your crew. You know good and damn well what they did was criminal.
I can say that they were both criminal acts, but the idea that these are the same is absurd. The amount of people that were killed as a direct result of BLM riots, the amount of damage that was caused as a direct result of BLM riots, which by the way destroyed these middle and lower class communities.
Name me a Black Lives Matter protester, a Black Lives Matter member that killed somebody. Name one.
Sorry, are you saying that everyone who was
name a Black Lives Matter protester that killed somebody? Name one.
So all of these dead bodies at BLM protests.
Name one.
The dead body that was found inside of
Black Lives Matter member,
Wisconsin, did that just spontaneously combust?
I'm asking a direct question. Name one person that a member
maybe
of Black
the fact
Lives
that we're
Matter.
not actually arresting BLM protesters who
it's the state
it actually shows that your argument is completely bogus. There's a two-tier justice system in this country, and BLM has institutional support, whether you want to accept it or not. How many Capitol protest
so now, wait a minute. So black people,
$10 billion.
Wait a minute, Pedro. So you're saying on my show that black people are the ones who now are privileged in America. They receive special protection from the
same thing as all black people. That is absurd. Look, these organizations pulled in $10 billion. The organizers of Black Lives Matter gin up racial hate in America. What did they do with that money?
You know how
they didn't
much
give
money,
it back to black communities. They bought homes.
Money. Wait a minute, I'm glad you brought that up. Since we're comparing money, how much money did these right-wing extremist groups that are run exclusively by white bigots make last year? How much?
Was it 10 billion?
118 billion, sir. 118 billion.
What are you even talking about? What numbers are you looking at?
Sir, here's what we'll do. I want to send you all of these records because obviously you research one side and not the other.
No. What?
100.
Give me a group. Are you talking about like conservative organizations like the Heritage Foundation or something?
Well, anything that's right-leaning and
that is hilarious. You're literally just lumping in the Cato Institute, Heritage, like these lame organizations. They're now white supremacist. That is a joke. That's not an argument.
Right-leaning organizations.
I can tell you that Black Lives Matter affiliated causes pulled in $10 billion. Where did that money go?
Why do you think that Black Lives Matter receives some level of special protection when they're literally fighting and advocating to make sure that there is equal protection of black and brown bodies in particular? Why do you think that they're out here protesting and going to jail? You're talking about a leadership structure of a Black Lives Matter organization. I'm talking about a movement for Black lives, which is different, even though they are similar in some aspects.
So do the people that you're claiming to represent, do they benefit from having their communities destroyed and from being less safe?
Once again, that's the false narrative. And Pedro, I hope I can engage in the sensible.
False?
Pedro, I hope I can engage in
Did Kenosha get burned to the ground, yes or no?
I hope I can engage in a sensible conversation or dialogue with you about that. The fact that you would bring up that somehow Black Lives Matter as a protest, a movement, an organization, that they are just committing destruction all across this country, that's a false narrative, brother. You know it. Less than 1%
How is it false?
Of any.
You actually haven't answered the question of these destructive rights.
Sir, less than 1% of any of these protests that were affiliated with a Black Lives Matter movement ended up in any destruction of property. That is a fact.
Less than 1%.
That's a fact.
Less than 1%. So a super minority caused about $2 billion worth of damage.
I don't know where you're getting. I don't know where you're getting those numbers from, and I really don't care about those numbers.
Look up. There's a report in Axios
that you don't hijack a narrative that says the movement for Black lives is somehow a terrorist movement or a criminal movement or a destructive movement. It's a good movement. What happened on January 6th,
as a movement doesn't actually serve anyone. It doesn't serve anyone except for the activists that benefit from it. Like these people are destroying communities, allowing murderers and rapists to go free from prison.
It has benefited, brother. It has benefited me and my community because Black Lives Matter protesters in the city of Atlanta, they're the ones that made sure the city got all cameras for police officers, that now there is a duty to report unlawful behavior of cops. And if they do not, that cop can be arrested. Now there's a database affixed with the city of Atlanta for bad actors who are on the police department that citizens can see. Those things happen because of Black Lives Matter and the movement of Black lives in the city of Atlanta.
And you have Black Lives Matter has also complained about the use of body cameras when they make people look bad. When they make felons look bad, actually.
Pedro, the general population in America, in Atlanta, they are for all of the policies that Black Lives Matter implemented in the city. So when you say they have not done anything, that's simply a damn lie.
Look, I think we can separate police reform from the organizational structure of Black Lives Matter. That is an entirely separate discussion. That's not what we're debating.
You want to separate it because the impact is real and you don't want to give them credit. So I understand why
the impact is real because organizations like Citibank support Black Lives Matter.
Well, they support the organization structure. Yeah, they have made contributions. I appreciate you being on the show, brother. Thank you, and we'll have you back. I'm just out of time.
Thanks.
All right. Remember, the conversation is next. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.